I'd like to welcome you to chapter and notes discussion of 9 Lives, Death and Life in New Orleans by Dan Baum. We'll be discussing this book tonight. I'll do a bit of a summary and go into an analysis looking at the book through the lives of the characters. From then, time permitting, we'll talk about his writing and the origins of 9 Lives. And again, if time permits, I'd like to show, if technologically possible, some video clips of the Indians and the second line. What we read, if you did not get a chance to read the book this evening, was basically an author who decided to chronicle the zeitgeist of the city of New Orleans as seen through 9 characters and bookended by 2 natural disasters. One being Hurricane Betsy that was in 1965, and then we go all the way up to Hurricane Katrina, which happened in 2005. What the author did not want to do is talk about the destruction of the city. He wanted to talk about the resilience of New Orleans, what makes New Orleans so special, based on the voices of the characters that we see throughout the book. And I would offer that this book is the ideal Americana story, warts and all, and an aspiration to what we can be. Okay, so that's my my little pitch on the summary of the book. What I'm going to go ahead now is do what we'll bravely go, where few people that trust me have gone before, and I'm going to go ahead and start this PowerPoint, and we'll just see what happens. We're all in this together. So you should be able to see my computer, I hope. And you can, yeah, can everyone see it?
Yep.
Great. All right. So now you see I'm pulling up my PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. And now I'm going to go ahead and play it from the start. And here we are. Okay. I want to go ahead and introduce you to our author, who is sitting outside of Cajun's Pub. This is Joanne's Pub, with Joanne and one of the patrons. And this is Dan, who he came down right after the hurricane hit about a week or 2 later. And you can see him, just enjoying a cold brew with some of the patrons. Give you kind of an idea, really stylish kind of guy. And I don't know if you remember Hurricane Betsy or not. I'm going to go ahead now, and this is where you'll need to holler and let me know if you can hear and see a clip I'm going to play from a television station that will give us a bit of context for what Betsy was all about.
Hi, I'm Nicole.
Okay, can you hear it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and can you see it?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's a success. Thank you everyone for coming. And I will see you next month for Ghost Story. I'm just kidding. Okay, let me just go ahead and fast forward.
The sound went off.
This is Sandy
A
Hook.
hurricane that sent water pouring into the lower 9th Ward, parts of Gentilly, the 7th Ward, St. Bernard Parish, and New Orleans East. And we're not talking about Katrina, though. This was Betsy. And that hurricane struck 50 years ago today, September 9th, 1965.
September 9th, 1965. A fast-moving Category 3 hurricane named Betsy slammed into the New Orleans area in the dark of night. The surge pushed into Lake Pontchartrain, up the Mississippi River, and into the Industrial Canal, causing major flooding in the upper and lower 9th Wards, Gentilly, and St. Bernard Parish.
The winds, recorded at better than 120 miles an hour, tore down trees all over New Orleans and power poles as well.
An erratic storm, Betsy's flooding forced people into their attics. When the sun came up, thousands of structures were inundated with water. Power was cut off, and people fought to survive.
In New Orleans and the Gulf Coast is almost certain to surpass the destruction Betsy caused in Florida, where she struck first.
Many wandered into stores to gather goods, and thousands had to flee to shelters. Senator Russell Long called on President Lyndon B. Johnson to fly in.
That Hurricane Betsy picked the lake up and put it inside New Orleans, Jefferson Parish, in the 3rd District. Now, Mr. President, we have really headed down there, and we need your help.
All right, you got it.
Mobilize National Guardsmen with weapons at the ready. Stand by to prevent looting.
Hurricane Betsy produced the worst maritime disaster in peacetime history.
Betsy became the costliest storm in U.S. history, with $1 billion in damage, thus earning the name Billion Dollar Betsy. Because of the storm, the Corps of Engineers designed and built the massive levee system we have today. But it came at a price, with Betsy claiming at least 75 lives after hitting Florida, Mississippi, and Louisiana. The killer storm is history. The name Betsy retired, and people along the Gulf Coast hope there's never another one like her.
Has anyone heard of Betsy?
I don't remember it.
You don't, Suanne? No?
I do.
I don't.
I was in high school and I can't remember the name of the storm, but I do remember a hurricane. I would have been a junior in high school.
Helen, did you live in Jacksonville?
No, I lived closer to the West Coast, north of Tampa.
Gotcha. Okay. What I found so eerie about the footage was it looked exactly like Katrina to me, except in black and white. And to me, it was such an anomaly. But to think this city has been slammed not once but twice it just kind of it gave me greater context. And if anything, I'm appreciative that our author was able to, use that literary tool to kind of frame the book. I believe it works. So what happens when, at the beginning of the book, we begin to meet characters who, come and go throughout the pages. What I would like to do is I'm not going to be able to focus on all 9 characters, but I would like to highlight a few with you and, just kind of give you some food for thought. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead now and do my magic again. All right, so one of the first characters that we meet is Bill or Billy Grace. And what I thought...
Which one is he first?
Billy Grace, I'll tell you in a second. But what I thought about when each character was presented was, why did the author choose this character, and what does the author, what does the character represent? So who is Billy Grace? He is the voice of white uptown. He married into the upper echelons of the carnival circles. He's an upper middle class striver. He's a decent, well-meaning guy. He is someone who represents that struggle of a changing city that wants to evolve, yet is drawn toward tradition. He works to elect the first Creole mayor, Mark Morial. And because of this, he gets the disapproval of his peers. He served as Rex, King of Carnival. And this is a New Orleans tradition that goes back to 1872. And this is a man who believed in the motto of Rex, which was, and it's in Latin, and maybe Esta, you can help me out here, pro bono publico, for the public good. Billy sees the role of Rex's crew as a public service that he does for New Orleans, out of love of New Orleans. The photograph that you see on the right is the beautiful mansion where his family, well, he marries into this big New Orleans family. And that's a picture of what the mansion looked like, past tense. In the
It burned
photograph,
down,
in the
right?
part, yes. So on the photograph, so yes, the mansion burnt down. The photograph on the right shows Bill being dressed in a fireman's uniform. Not only did it burn down, as we learned in the story after Katrina, but I found an article in the New Orleans Times-Picayune that talked about a fire that hit the mansion in 2019, right before COVID. Every year, the carnival, the parades would go by this particular house to give honor to Rex. And so in 2019, they came to his house. You can see some of the people dressed up around him. They honored him for his resilience, because the whole family came out anyway with what was left of the hull of this house. And he climbed atop their float, and he took, some type of drink of whatever they drink, grog or whatever. But he saluted the firemen that helped save, or I don't know if the house has been rebuilt or not, but at least no one in the house was injured. Again, it's this idea of tragedy and resilience, this cycle that represents the city of New Orleans. And that's what I think that Billy brings to the book. And I'll get to your, I would like your input shortly, that here is a man who represents the establishment, but he's trying to evolve and change. And there's resilience. And I think if you think about where you live or where we live, there are probably city figures in your town, our town, that could fill the role of Billy. Next, we have Allison Tootie Montana. So who is Tootie? He starts out as what I call a fighter, and he moves on to be a fashionista, along with his wife, Joyce Montana, who you'll see in the middle photograph in her nice, bright yellow sweatshirt. And she is now the widow of Mardi Gras King, Big Chief Tootie Montana. We meet him as he is dedicated throughout the year to creating these beautiful costumes that he'll wear for one day only, as a member of one of the Indian tribes in to put it bluntly, the poorer districts of New Orleans, the lower 9th Ward. And he is also an agent of change. His influence in the community goes from one of gangs coming out at this time of year into one of community pride, drawing on their past cultures and being able to parade around in these beautiful costumes and to show their own sense of civic identity during Mardi Gras. He's considered a real change agent in the book, single-handedly replacing the bloody fights between the Indian tribes, quote unquote, or marching clubs, with this aesthetic competition for the prettiest Indian outfit. And the word prettiest is such a special word in the book, because that's all his son wants him to say to him is, son, you are the prettiest. In this way, it's not a feminine term at all, but a term of pure beauty.
Could you explain something?
Yeah.
Why didn't they want them to march? Why were they always beat down?
When you say they, to whom are you referring?
The Indians marching in costume, they were always beat down by the police.
Well, I think that's more of a sociological study. I can't answer that. Those are the complicated dynamics of the city of New Orleans, and probably could be found in any city. You have to have.
Okay, they just didn't want their pride.
Pardon me?
It has to do with the pride of the 9th Ward, and they didn't want to show it.
Well, I think there's a worry of violence because there's a history of violence.
You mean
Stacey,
violence?
Yeah.
For anyone who didn't grow up in the South, you would probably need a reminder that this was a very, very segregated time and place.
Okay, because I grew up in Florida and that was not, to me, New
Florida's not the
Orleans.
South.
It's not the South, okay.
Not in South Florida anyway. No.
Right, so then this would be segregation against, okay, I got it.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is think back to history. And you can understand, you know, slavery, antebellum, Jim Crow, you name it, poll
But it was
tax.
Mardi Gras time, wasn't it?
But they were separate Mardi Gras.
Yeah, did you think everyone hung out together all of a sudden? It became like equality?
Well, I was there during Mardi Gras and everything was everywhere. So I don't know.
What year? Maybe what year?
1981.
This is 65-ish, up through then. Yeah.
Right. So
Also in the book, it says he took out the proper permits and everything.
right.
You know,
It's complicated.
Okay, I know it's complicated. I
Yeah.
thought maybe you had an answer for me.
Unfortunately, it's reality. That's my answer. I'm not
Reality.
trying to be a smart, you know, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but it's just the nature of who we are as a society.
And
Well,
as
why did they
developed.
choose Indians?
Because they're drawing on Native American pride and their West African roots. And
Okay.
it kind of becomes blended together and it becomes their own identity.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
All right. There is a scene in the book where Tootie is out and Billy is out riding his bicycle and they meet. You know, here they are living blocks apart their whole lives, right? So this one time, Tootie and Billy meet and he goes up to him and he is so clueless. And he basically says the equivalent of, oh, we got to do lunch. He says, oh, we have so much in common. It's like, how much can you shove your foot in your mouth, right? I mean, these people, do they really have anything in common? I see Kathy shaking her head. No, there is not a lot in common going on there at all. But nonetheless, Billy has good intentions. And of course, Tootie never calls him to get together for lunch. It is Dan Baum's way of showing how this very physically close community completely live in silos. Again, it sounds so familiar, at least to my world. You know, we can live right next door to one another and have no idea what is going on. Okay. I want to go back to our next character. Oh, did everyone realize that these were real people?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. We had one of our readers in our last session listen to the book online. And you know, when you listen, you don't have all the, like, maybe you don't have access to the preface or whatever. She had no idea. So for her, you know, coming to the book discussion was so enlightening because it was like, oh, very interesting. Okay.
I think the thing was she didn't realize one of them was black. The Tootie was black. You know,
oh, that's
so
right.
She was listening and it didn't come through.
Right. Did anyone else listen to it? Okay.
Okay, while we have a pause, with the one, the punk, I call him the punk or the thug, he was in italics. Was that because he came from California?
Would anyone else like to weigh in on that?
I was going to ask the same thing. Why was all of his part in italics?
From what I've gleaned from past discussions, I couldn't find anything online about this, was what Estes said, and it is the only portion that's told in first person.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be totally his not just his voice, but exactly what he said. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that's how I read it. And to me, it was the only way to tell his story was for him to tell it.
You know, I'd like to play on that a minute, Helen, because he's written literally word by word, letter by letter, phrase by phrase. You know, when you work for like a newspaper back in the day, you had to make a choice when it came to grammar, if you were going to literally quote the person or quote the person, meaning basically correct a little bit, because it would make it more credible, you know. And in this case, our author, who is a journalist by training, decides to put it in italics and just lay it out there. And then it is up to you as the listener or the reader to decide and assign what type of identity you want to that character. I thought it was interesting, and the italics to me made me feel like I was hearing him, or the rest were the author's report on the other people, like he said, she said, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, first person.
Yeah. Would anyone else like to comment on that?
I thought he was the most honest because he was allowed to speak his mind because it was italics. And he told, you know, what he felt about the government and the hard knocks he had, even though they may be true that, you know, he caused a lot of it. But I felt he was the most honest of all of them.
Wow. I thought there was I thought everything was honest the whole way through. These people were incredibly vulnerable. They opened their lives to this.
But I mean, as a speaker.
As a speaker. Okay.
As it was put down.
Okay.
I thought it was interesting that the author used Bill Grace to represent the upper echelon, because if you read his upbringing, it's not.
Right.
He married into it. And so he didn't pick any one person from Big Ann or George's actual group or strata, you know. And so I thought that was interesting. He does give you a glimpse, and he gives you the struggle through Bill Grace, but he doesn't give you someone who totally was brought up in that world and doesn't see the difference.
Well, I think in a way that represents, Jackie, you know, we're not allowed in there, Jackie, you and me. We're never getting in there. No way, no how.
None of us are.
Right. So, you know, and it is almost like the void speaks, right? That we don't even hear from, you know, the blue bloods. It speaks volumes. So the only way we get in is through this guy who marries in and never feels like he's one of them, really.
Right.
You know, and put a pin in that, y'all, because we're going to read Winter of Our Discontent, I believe in February. And that theme shows up again. Okay. And it's very
March.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to a real character, and that is our gynecologist turned coroner, Frank Minyard. Okay. I love a Renaissance man. All right, so here we are. Go ahead to him. Where is he? Okay, here's Frank, and I'm going to play. First, I'm going to play, and just be prepared because it starts very quickly. It's one of his very early ad campaigns.
I thought he was black.
Nope. So this is one of his very early ad campaigns running for coroner.
I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm going to let the people do the talking.
Dr. Mignard had forensic psychiatrists help the Katrina mentally ill.
Dr. Mignard es una buena persona. Dr. Mignard displayed dignity for the dead and their families during Katrina. He even created the idea with the New Orleans Katrina Memorial.
And he's even endorsed by the Picayune.
Who that? Elect Dr. Mignard.
Re-elect Dr. Mignard, coroner, number 17, the People's Choice.
Wow. Did I get fooled?
Okay, so there's Frank. I think that's like from maybe the I don't know, the 80s. I'm not sure when, but anyway, that's a very early. You can tell it's pretty dated, but I thought it was funny. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play for you a clip of a concert that was given just weeks after Katrina hit, because if you remember, our Frank is a musician and he sings and he plays the trumpet.
Oh yeah, and he was on TV.
Okay, so I just wanted you to have a kind of a feel for his expertise on the trumpet. He really does play the trumpet. Now, this is an interesting guy. Why was he chosen? Well, first of all, he says he is not a politician, but you can find volumes of video of this man online. He is absolutely everywhere. He knows how to work a camera. And the incident or the episode in the book where he's so disappointed because 60 Minutes did not air his trumpet playing goes to show you that he really has quite an ego. He represents someone who bridges communities, because remember, he starts out in a pretty nice part of town, being a gynecologist and doing very well. And after he goes and he helps out at, I think it's a methadone clinic, he has an epiphany and realizes that the indigent in the city, they need help, which eventually leads him to becoming a coroner because he believes there is dignity in the dead.
And wasn't that too also, Stacey, because the drugs were coming through the jail?
Yes.
And
Yes.
the only way the coroner had something to do with that, there was a tie-in that he wanted to get that position because that was happening and he wanted to try to stop it.
Yeah, and I think, Jackie, what this represents is the corruption. So we have these people getting hooked in jail, right? And then, they're worth nothing. And then when they die, it's just like, let's just get rid of them quick, right? And he couldn't handle that. So he went into the coroner and was like, I'll have your job.
Yeah.
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 And indeed he did. This is not a man without controversy. He's in the news over the years because of misidentifying bodies or bodies being cremated instead of being buried. He has problems, but nonetheless, he's like the oldest serving. I mean, he served longer as a coroner than anyone else. He truly loved the city. And let's see. So what do I have about him? Okay, so he's a downtown white boy who is a gynecologist to uptown matrons. That's how he's described. He's making huge money, even treating African-American patients when a lot of people wouldn't. Here's what he finds his social conscious when a friend asks him to play at a benefit concert for a children's breakfast program. And these are toddlers in the program are the offsprings of the prostitutes who are hooked. And the venue is a Black Panther Center. So there's so many cross-pollinations of demographics. I am not exposed to that at all in my world. I am so cloistered. Time and time again, turning each page of the book, it's amazing how these people cross-pollinate. And maybe that's that way in all cities, but there's something about New Orleans where everyone still has that joie de vivre for the city that I think sets it apart. Anyway,
Stacey, excuse me. I know I was taken when you said about Billy not being from money, even though he was in it. And I had made a note about Frank because I thought this was really interesting, even though he certainly was very influential in the community and very visible. Right when we first meet him, there was a quote that says, "The only thing he didn't like about being a rich doctor was finding himself too often in the company of the uptown swells his mother had taught him to despise." So he grew up poor, which I thought was interesting that he too.
$15 trumpet or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, he grew up poor too, which is very fascinating.
Yeah. You know, I think at heart, we're all about 8. You know, we get so imprinted at such a young age, and we just carry that with us. And Frank is another example of that, you know. Let's see. Oh, he is possibly the longest serving official in Louisiana history. I wasn't able to confirm that, but I thought it was interesting to bring to your attention anyway. And he is one of the few coroners in the United States that actually performs regularly on the trumpet, which is another wonderful claim to fame. He recently passed away, and his family posted videos on YouTube that you can find if you want to go look, of him in his wheelchair, you know, kind of skinny, whatever, in the kitchen, just playing the trumpet. Just a beautiful sight. He has a motto in his office that sums up his efforts on behalf of New Orleanians throughout his career, quote, "Where death delights to serve the living," which is just lovely. We get a great insight to what happened during Hurricane Katrina, right in that aftermath between him and Tim Briro, who drives around with a dead body in his car.
Marie.
Okay.
Marie.
Karina, did you have your hand up? Did you want to say something? Oh, okay. And I love how the author sets it up, because he almost starts giving us this rhythm back and forth, because we have the hurricane hit. We're with Frank when he's on Canal Street with his boots getting all wet, and he's making his way up to the courthouse, you know, and he's stranded there with all these other people in the city. And man, he's going to get work done. We're going to collect those bodies. And first, one group comes in, and please chime in if you remember each of these groups, but they're all these parts of our government. We're going to do the work. We're going to get those bodies. And they walk back in sheepishly. We can't get those bodies. Then the next group comes in. Oh, we're going to do it. And then no, I can't 1,000. And this continues over and over and over until, you know, like, Max Headroom shows up, or some bizarre creature in like a little uniform, and says, "We'll do it," because they've got the contract.
Yeah.
And so everyone's
always about the money.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Holding out for the deal. To be perched on Frank's shoulders and a witness to this was just beautiful. And I'm sure we've all seen, when we watched Katrina unfold on the television before our eyes, there were people who were complaining about this type of thing. I remember there's one gentleman who they still, every time there's a hurricane and they just know that it's going to be another, you know, train wreck. He's like, you know, FEMA should do this, FEMA should do that. He was from the 82nd Airborne or something. I'm not.
Yeah.
It
was the 82nd. Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, he's so knowledgeable, but at this point, when this man reports, he's just like, he's so over, he's like, well, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And we see why. It's politics, it's people, it's greed, it's, it's human.
Well,
Pass
that's
the
like
buck.
when they were saying with Betsy, when they knew they were getting no help in 1965 because there was no FEMA, everybody immediately started, what can we do? Rebuilding, cleaning things up. Fast forward to 2005, they're not doing anything because they're waiting to see, what are we going to get? What money's going to come?
Yeah.
The dichotomy was very cool. I thought that was very cool.
And
It
it's not
was.
like he offers an answer, like, how do you fix this? He just shows us what happens to these human beings who are involved in these
Right.
situations. He passes no judgment.
And it's still happening with the wildfires out west with Paradise burning.
That's right, Paradise. I remember that town.
That's why I like the guy. I think his name is Anthony. The one who told it like it was.
Yeah. You know what this kind of reminded me of is either like Spoon River Anthology or like Our Town. Like each character gets up and talks.
Yes.
It just dawned on me, but it was such an American, all American storytelling. Just
very sad storytelling, though.
Yes.
It goes to the heart, just to the heart of every sadness. I talked with Sue Ann, and did you see the part about the comparison to the Holocaust?
Yes, there is a character where they're in, I forget that.
I think that was Ronald.
Who's inspired by the little lady in his neighborhood. Yeah, who was a survivor. It's these universal resilience inspirations. There's heroes right around the corner, and she doesn't.
He gets a tattoo.
Yeah,
he gets a tattoo, so we'll never forget.
Yeah, just beautiful. Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about Tim, who I found absolutely heartbreaking.
Yes.
Did anyone remember these reports on the news? Because evidently it went wide that there was this man who was driving around with this dead woman in the back of her car. But
no.
You start off, I got to be honest, I don't like him. I don't like him.
Me either.
But in the end, he breaks.
Yeah.
And he
talks to her.
Yeah, she talks to him.
Right.
Just beautiful. I mean,
that confused me.
Yeah, a little magical realism there. Yeah. Oh, Winesburg, Ohio. That's another book that this reminds me of. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, so what does Tim represent? And his name is so French. I know I'll botch it. Bro, B-R-U-E-A-U. It's a lot of vowels. Anyways.
Oh, at the end. I know. B-A-U. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, he is new to New Orleans. This is new group coming in, and they find life in his small Texas town or Iowa boring, unfulfilling. So people are coming to this city. They're looking for excitement and danger. Of course, the French Quarter is known all over the world. That's going to be an obvious draw. And he loves his job at the police department because it has this kind of military esprit de corps. But then he gets in that accident and he doesn't feel like he's a whole person anymore, right?
Right.
So he has a commander, where someone gives him a break and he can continue on the force. But man, when he pulls up, I think it's to Charity Hospital, and they're like, this isn't even a hospital anymore. Or the breakdown of society as encompassed in that scene makes me feel very vulnerable, makes us realize how we're all in society together. We all have this agreement that could break at any moment.
Well, it already has broke. if you think about people in garages with COVID, in parking lots with COVID, and it gets sensationalized on TV, and it's still happening.
It's just so sad.
Do you know if charity's open again?
I don't believe so. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something? Was it Mary?
Yes, when
Yes.
that hospital scene came up, and didn't they lose total power? And I just thought, that's just that tore me up too.
And Mary's a nurse, so you
just to think that the generators, you just couldn't imagine. I just had this image of all the patients in that hospital. That was probably the hardest.
And the decisions,
part of the book, the decisions that were being made that were choices. I mean, that they had to. I was just too much to think about.
Yeah,
I agree. That was hard.
There was a ProPublica article that quotes Frank Minyard that ends up at Charity and interviewing the doctors and nurses at Charity and the decisions that had to be made. And again, we did hear about this. It was reported on the news, but now we're 2021, and I don't know. The book made me feel vulnerable because I don't know if we've taken care of any of the, if we're proactive for the next time.
We aren't. But I do have to tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a friend who lives in Continental Towers over in Orange Park. And they did come this morning to inspect it. So to find out if it wouldn't fall apart like it did in down in Ormond Beach.
Oh, it's
so they are inspecting at least around here.
Okay. Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Do you mean the collapse of the tower in Miami?
Well,
Surfside.
Surfside.
I'm sorry. Okay.
But they were.
Well, it's close to Miami.
Club Continental. That's
Okay.
where she lives.
Gotcha.
But they are now inspecting at least.
Good. Okay. So that's
So
good.
something is coming out of
A tragedy.
Well, that small place.
Okay. Well,
So
thank you.
maybe things will change.
Yeah.
Small little things.
Right. And you know what, Esther, we do have to acknowledge those too. And I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. There was another really interesting character in the book. He began as John, and when we close the book, he's Joanne. So I wanted to just show you a little bit about Joanne.
He was really interesting. But a hard life.
Here's Joanne. She looks fabulous. Look at those legs. And here's Cajun's Pub. It's still open. In fact, they have karaoke on Saturday nights and, you know, happy hour, etc. This was a very interesting character. And again, think about how you'd have to trust the author to share this story.
I thought he was black.
Oh,
so did I.
No, redhead. Beautiful redhead.
I thought he was black also.
Well, it's a she, and that's how
she.
That's how Joanne refers to herself. And you know, here's someone who was brought up as a conservative Catholic in the bedroom suburb of Metairie, college football player in Mississippi, married, 2 children, and only found serenity in his life when dressing in women's clothing. And in this very conservative life, makes those brave steps toward becoming the woman he really feel he is or she is. So why this character? Well, the book was written in 2009. He started writing it in 2007. So he represents a lot. She represents a lot of things. She represents the white flight from the city because they left and, you know, raised their kids in a beautiful place in the suburbs. They had that perfect idyllic life. And then again, he escapes or she escapes a conventional marriage to become a downtown bar owner. And it's kind of like she serves the island of misfit toys. You know, people who don't fit in are welcomed there. And how did our author meet Joanne? Her bar had a generator, so they had, you know, running water, they had beer. And when he was sent down to report on this story, when he was a reporter for the New Yorker, this is how he found out about and met Joanne. So Cajun's Pub was the rare source of cold beer in New Orleans, which I found very interesting.
And I love at the end where that young man comes into the bar and she is almost ready to run again and leave at the very, very end of the book. And she realizes she has very important work to do there. And that young man made her realize that she really has a lot of work to still do and that she's going to stay there and keep her doors open. And I thought that was awesome.
She can be a role model and a source of support.
Yes.
And look how her husband and her husband's boyfriend, like they all end up, you know, working together. And there's a lot of guns going on, you know, there's a lot of gun, you know, and I'm not a gun person, but I would have a gun too and not want anyone to come in and take over my bar. Like, you know, I made it through the hurricane and now you're going to it was so real. It like makes you question everything, you know, just so.
It was her wife.
Pardon, what?
Her wife. It was the wife. It wasn't
right.
her husband.
Yeah. Just
they came and moved in with her husband. Yeah.
So interesting. So many inspirational characters. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention two more. I've got two more real heroes.
Will.
Okay.
Love him.
He is black.
Wilbert Rollins is so interesting because we get to meet him and his wife. And some of the reviews count Belinda as a character, some don't. Some of the reviews count Joyce Montana, Tootie's wife, as a character, some don't, which is interesting. But we get real insight into the stresses of their marriage because she's like, look, are you going to take care of your family? Or are you going to take care of these kids? Is it your career or is it me? This man was born to teach. No doubt about it. This is what he was born to do.
The book, was so full of pathos and inspiration, but I laughed out loud when the principal of the school bought $36,000 worth of instruments, and they went to the bank to pay for it. The principal, who was supposed to be, a principal.
Yeah.
Well, where'd you get we don't have the money, the check is no good.
Yeah, that's, I think, what they call in New Orleans chutzpah.
Chutzpah, right. Very good.
Call it.
Yeah, that was great. That was, again, Ruth, that's resilience.
Right.
We never found out what happened to that principal.
No, we didn't. But our Wilbert Rollins has now traveled the world, helping other kids in other countries and cities, etc.
It's amazing.
He's been nominated, obviously, for all these teaching awards, etc. So I just want to play a clip from you of a documentary that was done a few years ago on him. What a guy. What a guy. Sorry about that. I thought I had this, so I was skipping the commercials. I apologize. Okay.
In 2007, I went to New Orleans to make a documentary about the city's school marching bands. The very first time I met Wilbert Rollins Jr., he was leading band rehearsal. This young man had just run in and joined in the middle of a song. You could maybe fault his technique, but not his commitment. And as usual, Mr. Rollins used it as a lesson.
2, 3. Well, you sat down there and made an immediate impact in that section. You realize that? Tell the truth. As soon as he sat down, right? Everybody in here the same way. As soon as you sit down and you could play your parts, you make an immediate impact. Take care of him, put him up.
This was just 2 years after Hurricane Katrina. New Orleans children, particularly in the African American community, had already been struggling with poverty and violence.
You gotta take it home, you gotta practice, you gotta learn your part.
And now this. For the kids in his band room, Mr. Rollins was their anchor.
It's hard to get the hood out of him because as soon as he walks out this door, he gotta get hood again. As soon as he hit that block, he needs to be a certain way, or else the rest of the people in this community are gonna, treat him a certain way. So he gotta act like he hard, he this, he that. He gotta maybe have a pack of cigarettes in his pocket, because that's what's going on in the hood, But while they're here, you don't have to worry about that. You gotta show them compassion. One, they have to know, I love you regardless. I'm telling you, you can build them up to be something special. I ain't slept in 8 days, I can go for 8 weeks to be that.
What Wilbert Rollins gives his students is knowledge and love of music and of their instruments, a belief in themselves, a reason to go to school and stay in school, and for a surprising number of them, a chance to go to college on music scholarships.
Now to teach him, Dominique, you can't let him just do that. Teach him. Now. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Wilbert Rollins is determined to change and save the lives of his students.
7, 8.
The same way his own band directors changed and saved his life.
Ready? I'm the only one of my friends I grew up with still living. It was 8 of us, man. 4 of them got killed, man, at different times. 3 of them overdosed on heroin. I'm the last one living.
While the priority for marching band is getting ready to perform, Mr. Rollins is able to get deeper into the music and technique in his classes and concert band.
Y'all heard that one? The only thing I'm asking you to do is just don't be scared to play. Play your part. Come in with your part. Ready? Watch how pretty this come out. Go ahead.
In the 3 years of making this film, I saw a number of music teachers and band directors.
There you go. That's how you do that.
I've never seen a teacher or mentor of any kind as impressive and as powerful as Wilbert Rollins Jr.
Build on it. Build on it. Come on, Antoine. Come on. Ready? Oh, that's not bad. That wasn't bad at all. You had me captivated just now. Your parents are going to look at you differently. Everybody that got on that bus, they went home. What they going to do? They going to play around, sleep, stand on the corner, smoke dope, play dice, all of this. Be for real. But not you. Right now you're working on your future, right?
Stacey, he also had a wonderful role model, Da.
His father?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to see in that video, but he has a picture of his dad above his chalkboard.
And then I also got a kick out of his teeth. Remember at the end with Belinda, with you gotta go.
Yeah, and actually the video goes on, and he looks, he's older now, clearly, and yes, he listened to Belinda. He has beautiful teeth, beautiful smile, but he could have no teeth and have a beautiful smile because he just exudes that teaching
care.
He so cares for those kids. He so connects with them.
And I loved at the end when Belinda was just like, I get it.
Get it. Mm-hmm.
She got it. After all those years, after all the struggle, she got it.
And isn't Belinda interesting? Her journey? You know, it's a very male-centric book, But to hear her struggles to want to, go to college, not get pregnant, eventually have the white picket fence and her husband, and, and then that scene where she is in Houston, I think, and she turns on the TV and sees that wheelchair. We've all seen that wheelchair at the Superdome, and I believe it's her aunt. Just crazy, just crazy. Okay, so do you want to hear about Ronald Lewis, or are you done with the videos? I don't have to do any more. We can.
I want to hear about Ronald Lewis.
Okay, so Ronald Lewis is another one of these community organizers. Someone who is just going to do it on his own because he knows no one is going to do it for him. You may recall that Steve Inskeep from NPR finds him, right? Well, believe it or not, we probably all heard him on NPR when Steve would go back and interview Rollins as, post Katrina. They really did form a nice friendship. I found a clip, an NPR clip that so we can hear a little bit of his voice. And the museum that he wanted to start does now exist, the House of Dance and Feathers, and you can go there. Luckily, right, so many people rescued a lot of the pieces. So that really exists, which is so incredibly wonderful. So let me go ahead and find that. Look at that smile. What a beautiful man. So let's see. Where's my cursor? Come on. Oh, well, doesn't seem I can escape. Let me try it this way. Oh, sorry. Well, we'll have to get to that interview later. It'll be in the notes when I send it out to you. But unfortunately, Ronald Lewis died last year of due to COVID. So they lost him just last year, which is very sad.